It's time for the Verosika video, because in many ways, the latest episode of Helluva Boss, Apology Tour, was the Verosika episode. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Deepcut here. Let's dive into the character of Verosika, who is more than just a curvy demon. She's got complex feelings too, with nuance and subtlety, but not so subtle that you guys didn't notice that at the end of the latest episode, she started using Blitz's preferred name, instead of referring to him as Blitzo as he was known in the past. Let's discuss her history and why exactly she made it to this turning point of seeming forgiveness. But hit that subscribe button first so you don't miss our Helluva Boss videos all week. Verosika is a character who was introduced without much of an ongoing plot. Whereas characters like Striker or Fizz would develop into their own little stories existing within the show, Verosika felt almost like a glorified extra after her debut in episode 3 of season 1. Here, she was established similarly to the other side characters in Season 1, with an entire episode building on the dynamic between her and Blitz. It was here that we learned that Verosika and Blitz once dated, and that Blitz was the one who dumped Verosika. This was obviously a fun setup because Blitz is presented as a not-so-appealing person, even by Hell standards, yet he consistently seems to be pulling in elite hotties like Verosika and Stolas. It wasn't just that he managed to pull Verosika either, but as we learned in the latest episode, she was so into him that she told him that she loved him, which is basically a deal breaker in Blitz's head. After telling Blitz that she loved him, Blitz ended up stealing her car and credit cards, abandoning Verosika in a motel room in the Lust Ring. He ended up using her credit cards to get horseback riding lessons in the Wrath Ring, which according to Blitz was essentially his only trip there until episode 5 of season 1 for the Harvest Moon Festival. Verosika's love for Blitz should have been apparent even before she said this, as when she was introduced in season 1 we could already see that she had gotten a tattoo of Blitz's name inside of a heart on her arm. Of course, this is Hell, so this might be more common than just saying I love you. It might basically be a way a lot of demons show that they're in a relationship, but only because it feels safer to mark yourself in this way than to be vulnerable with your feelings. And because of that, it wasn't until Verosika said the words I love you that Blitz seemed to freak out and steal Verosika's credit cards and car. As of now, we don't have a solid history on Verosika before Blitz, and we likely will never get some sort of backstory episode, but we can infer a lot just from the stories of the people that surround her in the show. Verosika, I have to imagine, isn't that much different than Fizz, with a bit less of the tragedy involving his injuries. Anyone who isn't born already elite in Hell only gets elevated to a certain level of fame or success if they are useful to someone above them. While succubus seem to live more luxurious lives than other species like imps, Verosika ultimately comes from a pretty harsh world where she is pushed to be in a pretty specific industry, and like Fizz, she probably has to do things she's uncomfortable with in order to get where she wants, even if Osmodius isn't nearly as exploitative as Mammon seems to be. The point is that just like just about anyone in the show, she probably has real baggage just from existing in this harsh world, and making it to a certain level of fame only gives her a heightened sense of how much worse things could be if she doesn't continually give up parts of herself that she doesn't want to in order to maintain the image of a fabulous pop star for the public. This has shaped her, but it hasn't shaped her to be a petty person, despite what this party may imply. If Blitz had reacted to her saying I love you by simply breaking up with Verosika, she probably wouldn't hate him the way we see in the show. Right now, Verosika is so hurt by Blitz that she throws a party every year to help other people get over him, through which she also helps herself. It's not actually a time to hate on Blitz, but more than anything, it's a time for Verosika to let herself wallow a bit, to remind herself of just how much she cared about someone, and how doing that made her feel like the biggest idiot in the world. We get such short glimpses into the lives of these side characters that it can be easy to imagine their emotions as exaggerated for comedic effect, and this annual party of Blitz's exes makes Verosika seem very much that way on the surface. But when she really starts to get emotional with Blitz, and when she explains how much he hurt her, we begin to see why she was really introduced into the show. It wasn't just to be an early example of how Blitz's relationships could play out, it was for this moment where she finally begins to forgive Blitz, or at least begins to truly feel better about what happened between them. Verosika's story isn't much different than that of Stolas, in that they both care for Blitz deeply, and at the end all they really wanted was for Blitz to show that he cared for them too. Stolas makes it clear that his big issue is that he feels like Blitz never felt anything for him in all the time that they spent together. We as the audience know that this isn't true, but Stolas doesn't. All he knows is that even though their existence in each other's lives is very much orchestrated, he still feels a natural sense of belonging with Blitz. It didn't matter if Stolas was forcing Blitz into his life, or if Blitz was forcing himself into Stolas' life to steal from him. In both cases, Stolas still just felt like Blitz was the right person to be around. All Stolas wanted was to know that Blitz felt literally anything, that the time meant something to him too, instead of it just being an act, and that is what Blitz struggles with the most. Verosika was essentially the same story. The difference is she actually got her confirmation that Blitz cared in this episode. While Blitz and Verosika start off as arguing with each other, she ends up treating him rather kindly in the end. This is because Verosika isn't petty, as I've said, but rather she's just trying to heal. This was an important relationship to her, and since then it seems she hasn't had someone so serious that she wants to announce to the world like she did with her Blitz tattoo. Blitz leans into fighting with her at first, but when he acknowledges that he doesn't want to be this way, something interesting happens. It's well known that Blitz's name used to be Blitzo, but that he decided to make the O silent when he adopted something of a new identity in life. He had previously performed as Blitzo and even continued to use this name while working for Verosika, it would seem, but when he transitioned into his personal business, he decided to remove the O. Of course, Verosika doesn't respect this, and when she is first introduced, she only uses the original pronunciation.
Blitzo. Aw, you mad, Blitzo? What's the game then, Blitzo?
However, after Blitz apologizes and says he doesn't want to be this way, she says this.
Hold it, Blitz.
This respect of his name change doesn't just show how she is trying to connect with him on some personal level, it shows that she is respecting the idea of him becoming the new person that he imagined when he adopted this name change. Until then, it was probably for selfish reasons, perhaps even to escape certain people from his past and be less recognized for all the destruction he had caused. But now she could respect that he was growing into a new person, into Blitz, and that it was okay to leave Blitzo behind. One thing quite a few of you asked me to discuss in the comments of the previous videos is how Verosika ultimately ends up welcoming Blitz into the Blitz-hating party, because perhaps no one hates Blitz more than Blitz himself. The party seems over the top with the number of guests, and I headcanon that most people who come to this bring a lot of friends, and that the people who do know Blitz here had one-night experiences with him. However, the people who were hurt by Blitz do seem especially hurt. And this is hell, so people are kind of used to hurting each other already. Just because it's hell doesn't mean that people can't be vulnerable, however, and Blitz's real issue is that when someone is vulnerable with him, he attacks them. With Verosika, it was stealing her car and credit cards, as it wasn't enough just to dump her, as that would just be seen as a rather normal way to approach a relationship that you aren't feeling comfortable in. He had to make sure that she could never chase after him again, that anytime she thought about him, all she felt was pain. We see so many demons destroying the image of Blitz in different games at the party, with some even crying afterwards because of what he had done to them, even if it was just a one-night stand. Blitz had convinced himself that his behavior was normal because this is hell, but it was all just a cover for his own vulnerability, his fear that if he says he loves them back, that they will ultimately just end up hurting him. And what's sad is that Blitz didn't even do this with Stolas. Blitz played dumb when Stolas confessed his feelings for him, but when he tried to sort out all of their issues, albeit a bit angrily, Stolas continued to dismiss him. Blitz had continued to double down on his different coping mechanisms since then, but with Stolas rejecting him when he tried to air out their issues in Full Moon, I really can't blame Blitz. In the end, Stolas seems to be the one person that Blitz might actually care for, but that doesn't mean Blitz was somehow in the right here. He used Stolas as a child and then came back to use him again as an adult to get the grimoire. He enters people's lives to use them, and as Millie can be heard saying in the trailer for Season 2, Blitz leaves them more broken than how he found them. Apologizing to Verosika thus is the first step towards apologizing to Stolas, to trying to be someone who doesn't try to sabotage everything on the way out of a relationship. But what do you guys think? Is Verosika a baddie or what? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Just be sure to point out that Verosika 100% always looks better with her hair up. See you guys next time.